everyone. I'm Susan Patty from the Armenian Institute, and we're very excited tonight to have an amazing array of speakers, each of whom is working in very difficult conditions and really doing very innovative and exciting work, building educational justice in rural Armenia. As the Armenian Institute is, of course, very interested in education generally, we're very happy to be helping in any small way that we can. And we urge all of you to sort of join this amazing club and help to continue their work in Armenia. I'm going to invite Talin Clark to take over and make the introductions. Talin, she's a very modest person, so I'm just going to say she's been amazing. And she won't say that, but she's fantastic. And she not only raises money for this and organizes this, but has walked across Armenia and done all kinds of other athletic things in trying to raise money and helped us out here at AI. So we're very proud now to introduce Talin Clark.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Susan. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Armenian Institute in London, and to all of you who are following the event online. I would like to start by saying a huge thank you to the Armenian Institute and its director, Susan Patty, for hosting this event tonight and for all your help in organizing this. So my name is Talin Clark. I run Books for Hope. It's an initiative to supply extracurricular books and other supplies to rural schools. I will be joined by Marianna Asatryan, who is the founder of Oxford Armenia Foundation, a UK-based registered charity providing support to implement educational projects in rural Armenia. And joining us from Armenia tonight is Astghik Mnatsakanyan and Tatev Karapetyan. Both are leadership development managers for different regions at Teach For Armenia, which is a non-profit organization based in Armenia. Their mission is to support teacher leaders on their 2-year teaching assignment in villages. Thank you. Since the start of the year, we have been working on a joint project called One School Library Per Month. Teach For Armenia selects rural schools where Oxford Armenia Foundation and Books for Hope evaluate and prepare a selection of extracurricular books that we donate to each school library. This project has been running since January and will be running until the end of this year, at least. And thanks to this online crowdfunding and our generous donors who are supporting our projects. So this is only one of our projects. So we are very happy to come together to talk about how to build educational justice in rural Armenia. We are all passionate about creating the conditions for inclusive, fair, and high-quality learning experiences for rural children. What do we mean by educational justice? Educational equality allows every child to access a free school education. In this sketch, on the left, all children receive equal assistance, but results show that children are left behind. We want to shine a spotlight on educational equity, the right-hand side sketch, by creating the conditions for every child to succeed. Practically, our goal is to implement an ambitious and sustainable vision of educational equity. This wheel illustrates 5 educational areas impacting children's learning experiences. We focus our work in the 3 following areas: aligning resources and efficient operations. So we donate the resources. In our case, it's the books to school libraries, and we support the efficient operations by liaising and sharing with teachers who enable book clubs and other activities that encourage reading. Ongoing professional development for staff is Teach For Armenia's domain, and they are doing an amazing work with which Tatev will tell us all about in a little bit. Family and community support are essential for our work to be impactful. It is heartwarming to see communities and families take ownership and feel empowered to create their own community projects. We thrive on instilling hope and change in resourceful and resilient communities, and are motivated to build inclusive, fair, and high-quality education. So now, what do we mean by rural Armenia? So geographically speaking, we refer to pretty much everywhere outside Yerevan, the capital. Armenia is a small, landlocked and mountainous country with difficult terrain and rough winters. Geopolitically speaking, we refer to an isolated country with its eastern and western borders completely closed due to ongoing war. Armenia's northern neighbor is Georgia, the only land border where international trade is coming from. Finally, Iran is its southern neighbor, which is under international sanctions and can therefore only provide limited goods and energy supply. The geopolitical situation impacts negatively children's educations in many ways. Economically speaking, rural Armenians survive on subsistence farming, foreign aid, and self-reliance. The country is energy poor, which means rural population have no access to gas heating and have to gather wood and dry dung to heat their homes and water. Rural children have to help out with all these household chores, and it has a considerable impact on their education. So tonight, our panel will present and discuss educational justice in rural Armenia as follows. Marianna will present an overview of the educational landscape in Armenia. I will be introducing Books for Hope initiative, and Marianna will then introduce Oxford Armenia Foundation and the educational activities it supports and implements. And Tatev and Astghik will present the amazing work of the non-governmental organization Teach For Armenia. They will then discuss the challenges brought by conflict, displacement, and poverty, and share their experiences on how all our efforts impact educational justice, quality learning, and well-being. Marianna, I think we can start with you.
Thank you very much for inviting us for this talk. Thank you, Susan, Talin, for organizing this event. As Talin mentioned, I'm going to talk about the educational landscape, discussing some reports and data. So I'm an educational assessment specialist myself, so data and statistics is part of my life day to day. And I thought that setting the context for today's presentation and trying to understand why we're doing all this work in rural Armenia, what's happening there, I'm going to kind of show you some stats, quite recent ones, using a few reports by World Bank of 2021, UNICEF and Global Partnership Education Report coming out of 2022. And what does the data tell us about educational landscape today in Armenia? So main challenges, as you can see, that education sector in Armenia has seen notable improvements in recent years, but the challenges continue and they are still there. And that's kind of evident in any report that you look at. Issues of equality and quality of education are there, and rural children are particularly disadvantaged. So is Armenia, why is this happening? I think one of the multiple reasons, so many factors coming into this, but one of the sort of highlights at wherever you look into the data and statistics is that Armenia is actually the worst performers in terms of the spending, public spending on education. And that cannot, and that basically translates to every sphere of quality of education in the country. I think the government is currently probably doing a lot of work on that, but we are still nowhere near what our neighbors are. So what challenges we have for teachers and what the data shows us there. So actually teachers in Armenia are highly educated. 85% have bachelor's degrees and they collaborate with one another. You might know that recently there was a new national curriculum being introduced and piloted in some regions of Armenia. So teachers are kind of quite keen on embracing any reforms that are coming our way. But there are lots of challenges, especially in the areas of shortage of teachers in specific subjects such as mathematics, sciences, ICT, foreign languages. Teachers are underpaid. I just put the average annual salary of teachers is 58% of the GDP per capita, and you can compare to a few countries. You can see on the slide how low that is. Teachers, so TIMSS, Trans-International Mathematics and Science Studies, is an international assessment platform, which is done by International Association of the Evaluation of Educational Achievement. Actually, this trend, Armenia has been participating in TIMSS for a number of years, and there's quite a lot of sort of data coming out of that study that is being done. So especially the sort of positive one is on the profile of teachers and how that can be improved. So the main purpose of running any international large-scale international studies is to be benchmarked across other countries, and then government to introduce certain policies and look at the gaps in the country. So what does the TIMSS data show us with regards to teachers? That there is lack of effective professional development for teachers. They have very high workload. They lack resources. They use outdated material. So there is inadequacies in access to technology, and wherever there is a piece of technology, teachers basically are not trained to use it, and they don't know what to do with it. So as I said, teaching practices, instructional material, all of that is quite outdated and really needs sort of to be looked at. And the institutional capacity to guide change is very limited. Now, what does TIMSS data tell us about students? So that quote that I put there, World Bank 2021, more than a third of children in Armenia are not proficient in reading. That caused a lot of media attention at the time, and sort of very big headlines, a third of children are illiterate. This is actually one measure of literacy, learning poverty. So learning poverty is being able to read and unable to read and understand a short age-appropriate text by the age of 10. So in Armenia, 35% of kids are below the line for learning poverty. And you won't be surprised to know that there is a huge discrepancy in that learning poverty between the urban area, mainly urban, and rural areas. So I just wanted to show you, so basically also, so areas and socioeconomic indicators, which is called SES. So I think this might be an interesting one. You can see that Armenia is benchmarked across neighbors and across kind of post-Soviet countries and probably countries with similar sort of GDP, etc. And we are one of the worst countries, but basically the second one from just behind Kazakhstan. Sorry, it's not for people who are here. It's that one is 20. What was the point? 24% or something. And then the next one is Kyrgyzstan. So not doing great here. This one is quite interesting. That TIMSS assessment is an assessment of mathematics and sciences for grade 4, and then another assessment for grade 9. They basically track the children throughout that assessment. So on mathematics, you can see the differences between boys and girls. Actually, girls are outperforming, but that's a standard thing, and I think that's kind of general pattern across other countries as well. You can see that on urban rural, we are okay with younger children in mathematics, so probably they start at this kind of same level. They come to grade 9, there's a statistically significant difference between the rural and urban areas. And on poor and richest, that's a sort of statistically significant differences between poor and richest kids. And we know that kind of overall, we have a lot more poor kids living in rural areas than in urban areas. So that comes to my sort of continuation of what are the challenges in rural communities. Endless. So poverty rate is significantly higher. It's probably not a surprising outcome for to mention is that 33% higher than in urban settlements, and in the urban it's only 19%, somewhere at 20%. So there is a huge increase of children in rural areas. And UNICEF basically gave this number that there will be a further decrease by 12% of decrease by 2030. So school attendance is low among children in rural areas. 4% of poor and 20% of extremely poor kids do not attend school because they have to go to employment, or they just basically don't have basic needs to be able to attend schools. So that's one kind of important thing is the preschool education, and there's a lot of research and showing that importance of early child's education in Armenia. Armenia is probably one of the worst countries in that area. Is that I think because it's also we have so much sort of support from families of childcare, etc. Kids just don't, and whatever, and all the preschool is basically a kindergarten when they are looked at. There is no sort of framework of early child education, although I've put the quote there that there is a strategy of development for education until 2030. So I think the government is on board with the fact that the country is really behind on that. Enrollment ratios are worse in rural area, especially to primary education. And although, the school coverage has improved slightly overall in the recent year, we still have huge issues with equality, equity, and all the stuff that Talin was mentioning earlier, especially in rural areas. I think that's what I had in my data. So over to you for the yes.
So I will quickly present the Books for Hope initiative. Maybe we can just stay on this slide, and I will just do a quick presentation. Okay, so I just wanted to quickly talk about Books for Hope. It's an initiative that started in rural Armenia while I was hiking in 2018. I was going through villages through the Dilijan National Park in the Tavush region. And we came across a village where we started chatting with villagers, and we asked them what they want. So we were a group of hikers, and we asked them what they needed most in that village. And they said that they needed books for their school. So schools get given school books from the government. But they have no provision for extracurricular books, so any kind of novels or anything that could interest children, improve literacy, and be fun at the same time. So we came back a few months later with loads of books for this school and their children, and we saw their really smiling faces, and we were really happy to help them, and it kind of went on from there. And then we met a few people. We met Teach For Armenia teachers back in the middle of Syunik, again when we were hiking, and that's how we got in touch with Teach For Armenia. And I met Marianna. I can't quite remember how we met, but we started working together last year on a project in Lori, in the Shirak region, where we helped with art supplies, and Oxford Armenia Foundation helped set up a summer camp. So it's been very motivating to work with all these people and to feel like there is a lot of movement, a lot of local charities and international charities who are helping children in Armenia. There's still a lot of work to be done, and we are very keen to get on with it. And at the beginning of this year, we set up with Oxford Armenia Foundation, we set up this GoFundMe campaign to cover all the projects that we are implementing this year. So we started with the one school library book donation per month project, where Teach For Armenia selects a school, and we then talk with teachers and children. They give us their wish list of books they want to read, and we gather all this, and we bring these books to them, and we make them happy. And the reason why we work with Teach For Armenia is because their teacher leaders are extremely motivated, amazing teachers who take complete ownership of the books we deliver to the schools, and we know that they are in good hands, and they get, because there's a whole kind of there's a whole maintenance, if I can say it that way, of you know, creating reading clubs, making sure that the children are motivated to read, following up on their readings, and all that work that the teachers from Teach For Armenia are doing, and that's why we kind of got on. We're now working with Teach For Armenia, who I'm gonna go to the Armavir region next week with Tatev, who will be speaking later on, to deliver books in 3 different schools. So that will be our May, June, and July schools. So I'm looking forward to see Tatev next week. And also I want to say a huge thank you to all our supporters. Like as you can see on the screen, the GoFundMe has now reached £3,360. That's a huge amount, and we are really amazed by how much we raised, and we hope to raise more. And so we're going to leave this this GoFundMe page on for as long as we can, to cover all the projects we want to do in Armenia. And there's a lot going on. We've got a project with Norarar coming up next week again. I'm meeting them on Thursday next week. And we are also with Oxford Armenia Foundation going to help out set summer camp, which we did last year and which is gonna work again. We're gonna do again this year because it was so successful in running this summer camp for disadvantaged children in the Shirak region. Thank you very much. That's all for me. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. Right, I'll go to that next. Well, thanks. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about our charity, how we started. I think I kind of already touched on why we started, and looking at what I've been presenting earlier, I know why I'm doing this. So we came together after the devastating war in 2020. So we are is a group of young ladies who most of us are related to Oxford University. We're a student at the time, alumni. Some of us live in Oxford. My sister is here with me, who designed the presentation as well. So what brought us into setting the foundation is that need and understanding that the country needs us at the moment more than ever. And it was in ruins, it was bleeding, we were all bleeding, and we thought that we really have to come together and basically collect all the knowledge and expertise and experience that we have gathered here, living in this country and getting, this education, bring it back to our country and do that tiny investment back. So, and because most of us are from education sector, and me, myself, being an educational specialist, that was the area we decided to target. So far, Talin has already mentioned the summer camps, the summer activities that we did with partner charity, Caritas Armenia, and 2 very remote villages of Yaroslavl and Bayandur. And it was basically bringing first year, and this year we're going back with art therapy, which was sort of healing the war trauma as well as bringing an activity in the villages where nothing existed at all. We saw so much throughout these years. Have seen so much support from wherever we would go in Armenia, from community leaders and parents, and you would just see that people feel the need of you doing any kind of interventional program. They were so open, like, you know, this village hall was given us for free and the school was provided for free, everything. So, and one important thing also that we realized as part of this journey, how much you can do with very little amount of money, which here is in this country is basically probably, you know, some pocket money. You can help 120, you can provide an 8-week art and dance classes for 120 children, and that was really motivating, and you could see their excitement and that change that you brought into their lives, and that sort of kept us going. All of us, to mention also in our team, are volunteers, so none of us works for the charity. We're not paid staff, so we do this at the weekends and whenever we have time. And then I met Talin. Last year we presented the Armenian festival together, and then thought that this is a good opportunity actually for a very small charity running on a kind of group of volunteers, and Talin's initiative to come together and become stronger in this community. And there was so much overlap in what we're doing. So we came together, and that actually translated into another summer camp and all this, the fundraising that Talin mentioned earlier, and all the nice stuff that is happening. So a couple of things about the current projects. The reading hubs is something that we're developing at the moment as a program, and that's with one educational chair in Nurarar, who are specialists in literacy. Back to my point about 35% of kids being illiterate in the country, underage. So that's what we want to target, to set up clubs. Then Engage in the Power project is the one that's happening this summer. We're going back at least to that summer camp, but we want to expand depending on the funding. And One School Library a Month project is Talin's project, but we are supporting with whatever we can. So yeah, thank you.
So we are now inviting Tatev and Astghik, who are joining us from Armenia, to talk to us about Teach for Armenia, of course, and to give us a bit of their experience on the ground, which is very valuable, and to talk a bit about educational justice as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Talin. I can share my screen. I hope you can see. Good evening, everyone. First of all, thanks to everyone who joined the call and in person to this important talk and conversation. I know it's after work time and everyone is kind of tired, but still, and thanks to our colleagues, Talin and colleagues from Oxford Foundation for having us as a guest. As Talin already mentioned, I'm Tatev. I work at Teach For Armenia, and my colleague Astghik, who also joined us today, will continue if I miss anything about Teach For Armenia. But as kind of we have started to hear lots of things, I just want to kind of stop and ask whether anyone has any quotes to say or any question to the previous presenters. Then we go on. So you are not all the time listening, but you are also talking and asking questions. if anyone wants to. Then, yes.
Yeah, Tatev, I think we're going to leave the questions for the end, probably.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay, then let me introduce you a little bit about Teach For Armenia, who we are, what we do, and why we do, as my colleague also previously talked about. We all kind of started our talk today from educational crisis, and Marianna brought lots of very important data and statistics that explains like what is the situation in educational spectrum in Armenia, especially within public education, and particularly what's happening at schools. Basically, many of the things has been already told, so I'm not gonna repeat. But two main points about literacy and about like whether kids go throughout the whole school education or not. So you see these statistics that 1/3 of elementary school students demonstrate deficiency in literacy, and only half of the school students get education in the high school. In Armenian, as you may know, we now have elementary school, middle school, and high school. So middle school includes by 9th grade, and that means that half of the students stop their education when they reach 9th grade, and lots of issues like why that's happening, especially in rural areas, has been already explained. So I'm not gonna stop there a lot. And another thing that caught us in this work that we are doing in Armenia is that we have high shortage of teachers. As you can see, like 600 and 700 vacancies across the country, and of course those vacancies are not in Yerevan, are not in regional centers, but mostly are in rural communities. And these numbers don't include the number of teachers who actually are teaching at schools, but they are not specialists of the subjects. So on the one hand, we have lack of teachers at rural communities, and on another hand, we have case when the subjects are being taught by not specialists, and we know like this may cause some issues itself. So as these statistics kicked us a kind of to start a movement back to 2015, when our first teachers, only 14 teachers started their journey with Teach For Armenia. They were our first cohort who were like the first ones going to rural communities for 2 years, living and teaching there different subjects from STEM to history to foreign languages, etc. And believing in the vision that we all want to have Armenia, where children are not limited with their educational opportunities, like the place where they are born does not define who they become. Unfortunately, now we have the situation that like wherever you're born decides what kind of subjects you study at schools, what kind of opportunity you may pursue, etc. And that's like all together we envision in Armenia, where all the children have access to excellent education, regardless of any socio-economic or other circumstances. So, and this is the vision, but how how we try to enrich to this vision. That explains our mission. So we kicked off a movement of impact-driven young professionals who on the other hand, they want to pursue their career in education. On another hand, they want to help to rural communities to unlock their potential, helping the kids to see the opportunities of the communities and to expand those opportunities throughout all Armenian communities. So in Teach For Armenia, we have kind of a joke that if whenever Teach For Armenia is not needed anymore, then that is a dream Armenia. So we all dream of the times that we won't need Teach For Armenia, gathering all these young professionals and placing them in rural communities to keep lower the shortage of teachers and to give back the hope to kids and our community members. And what kind of program we have? So our teachers are once they are accepted to the program, they have 2-year teacher leadership program, and they go to one of the communities, and those are mostly rural communities and remote communities, underserved communities, and they live for 2 years there. They teach any subject at a public school, and then besides teaching there, they run extracurricular activities, and they initiate community innovation projects, one project led by students and one led by teacher. As Marianna mentioned, one of the main issues that teachers are not receiving support and professional development opportunities. That's what we give our teachers. So Astghik and me are the specialists who work with teachers throughout their 2-year journey, helping them to develop their leadership skills as well as their pedagogical knowledge and experience, and lots of other challenges that they face in the community. They enter just once and live there. So we want to see, but the classroom is not the end, it's the beginning. So we want to see impact in classroom, impact in community, and system-wide impact. And we have lots of success stories already in all the levels. From social entrepreneurship programs to teachers that become principals, then educational inspectors, and they kind of try to transform the system, coming from the classrooms where they see the roots of the educational crisis. And here you see some numbers. So luckily last year we entered the last region, which was Vayotso region in Armenia. So now we are presented and have our teacher leaders in all Armenian regions. And when I say Armenia, I always include Artsakh. So throughout Armenia, we have teachers in all regions, and currently there are 175 teachers who are currently teaching in the communities. As we remember, the starting number was only 14, and this is our 9th cohort that is coming in September. And we have 240 alumni that are again engaged in different educational and also non-educational activities, trying to keep the movement going on. And here again we have the biggest success we really are amazed of, that our students, former students, now becoming our teachers. So in our 7th cohort, we have already 2-3 teachers that have been our former students. So this is the transformation we dream and want for, to see our students later becoming teacher leaders, and then the ones who transform systems, state, nation, and whatever. And the last point where we want all to reach is our 2050 promise, when we promise to child born now, that by the time they become 25 years old, the nation and our state will be transformed by youngsters, by themselves in their throughout their leadership and the leadership of their community members. So this is where we want to reach, and we together with different like-minded people, as we are in this call, we try to transform the rural educational system for having better Armenia. I will stop here, and I guess we have another slot for questions, and then maybe I ask for Talin to bring up what's next. So this is mainly about what we do and why we do.
Thank you very much, Tatev. I think maybe we can go to Astghik now, and then have the questions. Thank you.
You too.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, and thanks for having us today. I'm Astghik from Teach For Armenia. I'm one of the leadership development managers in South region. We work with teacher leaders in the communities during their 2-year program, and I guess we can, Tatev, maybe we can go through the main two questions. You can start talking about the background, so we will.
Okay. I just want to mention that Astghik was one of those 14 teacher leaders that firstly entered the first communities, and now she is supporting the next generations entering the communities. So as we mentioned, I started my journey with Teach For Armenia since 2018, and I have been working 2 years in Artsakh, in our Artsakh regional office. And then I continued my experience working in Astghik and currently working in Vyostor region, meaning all the regions that are becoming bordering and becoming dangerous. So we, with the new cohort of teacher leaders entering to all this community, we are having like the supporting team members there in the region, so they have they feel themselves safer, and they feel that they are not alone in this mission. So what about talking about educational justice? We cannot escape the theme of war, but whatever we experienced in Armenia was even before war. So I started working in Artsakh in 2018, and I saw totally different reality that I could never imagine of. I always thought I know Armenia quite well. I have been in all the regions, etc. But whatever I saw in the rural communities, in remote communities, was totally shocking and was totally different. For example, first time I saw schools with less than 10 students. I saw classrooms where there were three students, and each of those were different grades. And I saw kids didn't study subject for example, 10 years. We had an English teacher who was teaching English letters for 10th grade students, so they didn't have chance to study English, geography, and STEM subjects. So I could never imagine that we have such kind of reality outside of Yerevan where I was born and grew up. And this again, I want to mention before the war. So that's not the thing that war brought up, but war made the things even worse. And I saw communities with literally like nothing, only nature, school building, houses, and that's all. No shops, no even hospitals, no roads, no water, and people still living there, and people very resilient and kind-hearted, and kids that just need someone to help them to believe that there is some that in their community they can still live and they can still transform and change their lives. So, and when the war started, you may know the whole borderline became previously, if in this picture, no, I'm going back, but I need to just a second. I just want to open the yes, I just want to open this map. So you see Artsakh was covering the part of Geghar-Kunik, Bayasar, and whole Syunik eastern border of Syunik region, which is now Azerbaijan because of occupied territories. And all these communities are living in very unsafe situation. And while we are having this conversation, recent clashes just happened in Geghar-Kunik region in Sotk village, and again one soldier was deadly wounded. So if we think of this situation ongoingly happening in the communities, we can imagine what kind of big educational obstacles and challenges we may face, and students may face, and community members. So we can't say that the war ended, because it's still going on there, and people either live in the war when it's like openly clashes are happening, or they live with conflict because they're never safe. And the kids are lacking their family members, and they are hearing shooting while they are sitting in their classrooms, and our teachers are going to the bordering communities and sharing all these things together with their students. So this geography made the real conflict very bigger, and the field work really very difficult. And all the time we are having interrupted education. Either we go online, or even Artsakh, we don't have electricity, we don't have internet, so even we don't have opportunity to continue the education in online version. So we have kids and those who are just starting the schools. It's already third year that they are not having normal classes at schools. And we see back the statistics, they can't read, they don't have literacy, numeracy. So this is a circle that still keeps on going. And after the Artsakh war, now we have the blockade situation, and we have our teacher leaders in blockading in Artsakh, but they still work there. They go to the kids' houses, try to do some extracurricular activities with kids. They even open a library in the blockade. So these things that are happening gives real hope to the people living in such insecure and unsafe environments, that they are not alone. And even when we talk about Artsakh war and the blockade, we may remember or may not be aware of Syunik blockade. Like we have had two roads being blocked, and different communities that were just blocked, but two-sided, like between Azerbaijanian military sites. And lots of people couldn't get food, couldn't get gasoline, couldn't get to their job, and students couldn't get, and still are not able to go in some regions to school just because it's not even physically safe, let alone psychological safety, and let alone academic progress or whatever that we might wish to see happening in the classroom. Lots of blockade have been happening before the Artsakh big blockade that everyone is aware of. And currently, again, the situation just leads to make the educational and social injustice just worse and worse, because we are having still displaced people from the communities. We are still having clashes in different sides of Fayotsor or border with Nakhichevan, again, border in Gerarkunik. And we know that we have just one tiny Artsakh, all surrounded by Azerbaijan, and we are still not sure what's going to happen, and we are even not sure whether we can bring our teachers back from Artsakh. That's the main context where we work now and where our teachers are working, but still, thanks to people just in this call in London now, we keep on going and keep on believing that we are going to overcome all these challenges, and we are going to see our kids safe and secure in their own communities, living there and building their future in their communities. And some stories and insights I can bring from real communities. You see kids from Aritu, which is unique region, and Talin well knows this community. And whenever you go nowadays in any community of Armenia, you see displaced students from Artsakh. So it doubles the educational challenges in the community, and also the kids sometimes are having difficulties to be integrated in the communities, and they are still they have been still communities in last September that went to switch to online studies for months. There is Nerkinhan village you may heard of, that is still insecure for kids to live there, so they go to school to the next and leave to the next community, wishing and dreaming of getting back to their village. And there are lots of students that they still in stress because they have their brothers, fathers, and relatives serving in the border, and they are still hearing the shooting. Even when once I called to my teacher leader in Syunik in last September, and I'm asking like, hey, how are you? How are you doing there? He says, everything is fine. And I'm hearing heavy shooting on the phone, and he says, everything is fine. And I'm telling like, let's emergency exit and get back you from the community. And he says, then when I'm back, how can I look at my students' eyes when I leave them in this crisis? So none of our teachers left the community throughout all the war and clashes that happened and are still happening in the communities. So yes, I know it was long story, but this is what happened and what's still happening in our rural communities. And besides all the difficulties that the system has itself, now the war and after war situation doubles and triples all the challenges that our kids are facing in their communities. Mainly this much. If you would have questions, I know we can then get back to the questions. Thanks for hearing this long story. And I guess, Astghik, you can continue, or Talin, you can.
Thank you very much, Tatev, for sharing all this with us and with the audience today. I guess we can open the floor to questions. If anyone has any questions to ask, you can unmute yourself and ask them in person, or you can type them in the chat box, or we can have questions from the audience here. So we welcome any questions that you might have. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
Curious, what type of books do you give the children? Are they like textbooks or novels, or are many of them English books?
Okay, I'm not sure if anyone heard the question here in the audience. We've been asked what type of books we give to the school libraries. So thank you for the question. That's a question I like to answer myself, if that's okay with everyone else. So we send, there is actually quite a lot of choice at the moment of translations of books into Armenian. So there's loads of children adaptations of classic novels that have been translated into Armenian, like Romeo and Juliet, like, you know, children adaptations, and other books. There's the first 5 books of Harry Potter, exactly, that have been translated into Armenian. There is also Armenian literature, and there's a few Armenian children authors as well. I mean, you know, it's not a lot, but there are some very interesting authors. And there's also, we also bring a lot of classics, and we try to cover the whole age range of school, so from 6 years old to up to 18 years old. I mean, bearing in mind that a lot of students in rural area don't go on after 9th, 10th grade.
You have books that teach phonics?
Yes. In some schools where there are, you mean teach phonics in Armenian, or because well, there are in Armenian, but that's more preschool and maybe 1st grade. But we also bring easy English books. So again, like children adaptations of all the classics, whether it's Peter Pan or, I don't know, Black Beauty, or all the Shakespeare. So we bring some of those English books to Armenia as well, and to schools where they obviously have an English teacher. We also bring a little bit of, when we are asked, Russian literature, because Russian is the 2nd language in Armenia. And yeah, that's about it. Any other questions?
If I may add to this question, Talin.
Yes.
So as Talin already mentioned about the books, we should maybe share also how students work, or how they get the books, and what was before the donation. So mainly in our schools, either there are very old books from maybe Soviet Union and can be like, most of them can be in Russian, or either the books that are not just old and in Russian, but there can be many schools that don't even have a library, or if there is a library, if there is a room, there are no books in this library. So mainly students don't have anything else but their textbooks that they have for each subject. So having these books, thanks to the donation, not only just kids would be happy about reading, but also our teachers would organize. They have already launched book clubs. So they will organize the reading, the discussions, and it's an extracurricular activities and like drama clubs and different activities for the students. And we should mention that all the students are really very happy and engaged in these activities, in these clubs. And it's also, I would say, a part of our emergency education program, as we started from 2020, from the very beginning of the war, we started emergency education, and that was one of the, I would say, another project of Teach for Armenia, that we were working with displaced students from Artsakh, and we would map all Armenia to find in which regions we have kids from Artsakh, and they are not attending schools at this moment because they would hope to go back to Artsakh, and they would stay in Armenia for, let's say, maybe a month or not longer. We would send teachers or a group of volunteers to work with them. And again, they would have these extracurricular activities and clubs. So having book donation was another big, I would say, happiness for all the students, and of course for teachers, because they have new way of engaging students in the learning processes, as they, again, it's about not only just motivation, but also about lacking electricity, internet, and very basic supplies for living. So it's not only about attending the school, but also about having all the resources to study.
Thank you, Astghik, for mentioning that.
Do you have any foreign language teaching? Any foreigners who go teach in the rural area?
Do you want to answer that? I mean, I know the answer to that, but I don't want to. Tatev, maybe you want to answer the question?
We don't hear the question.
Okay. So the question is, do we have any foreign teachers who come and teach for Armenia? So, Tatev, do you want to answer the question?
Do we have what? Sorry, I couldn't.
Foreign teachers.
Foreign teachers.
Oh yes. Actually, we in our last cohort, the 7th cohort, we have teacher from Spain, and she is Spanish. She's not Armenian, and yes, she is doing her fellowship currently in Syunik, in one of the most remote, bordering and dangerous communities, and she loves her community very much. She says this is heaven on the earth, and she is doing just amazing job in the community, even when the recent clashes in May 2021, then in September 2022. The community where she is located was one of those who who was like under attack, and she was helping and volunteering there in kitchen for making stuff to soldiers, and then they are getting the kids outside out of the community. She was staying there in neighboring community and entertaining kids, so they are kind of a little bit relaxed from the war situation, and she just felt all the things that and just kept being very resilient and continued, and she still continues her fellowship in the region despite lots of very unbelievable challenges that she faced, and being non-Armenian. Yes, that's another amazing story of us. And yes, she is still serving in the community is Tsav, which is really very bordering. I was telling just about Nerkinhand village that is even not safe now, and kids are not going school there, and Tsav is right next to the Nerkinhand. And yes, she is there and doing her amazing work for the kids. They just the student. She conducted student-led project hiking trail with the students. So they have an amazing hiking trail throughout the amazing nature that is surrounding the village. And yes, but for now she is the only one foreigner in the program. Thanks for the question.
I had the opportunity to meet her, and in fact, she was the person who introduced me to Teach For Armenia. The community where she works is quite hard to live into. I mean, it is a war zone, and she's a hero. She's amazing.
And the road was blocked, and you imagine she was the last person who passed through the road, and where Azeri soldiers were already standing, and she faced lots of really very dangerous situations that she was could just quit the program, but. Yeah, no, she didn't do that.
Yeah.
She stood up with her kids and with her students.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have a question from the audience. Peter is asking, is the government spending on education on the low side because defense spending is so high?
Yes, I can. Obviously, I don't have the exact reasons why the educational spending is low, but that has been the case for the past, definitely since the collapse of the Soviet Union, and I don't think we have had huge spending on education, and I think previous governments actually ignored it more than the current one does. So it's very easy to basically overlook the educational sector in the grand scheme of, yes, defense issues and border issues and all of the economic, basically poverty, etc., that we have in the country. So you concentrate on something normally. You concentrate on something that is easily solved, right? You give, build a road, build a house and spend money on kind of making, which has direct impact on that moment. But education, spending on education and then seeing the result takes decades. So I think in that context, they have not been doing much. And I think also from my point of view and how much kind of reading, etc., that I've been doing, you could see that there was this understanding that, okay, the Soviet education was great. Why do we need to change anything? And this kind of complacency that it's all fine, it's good, modern education, Western education, etc. So there was a lot of that discourse going on in my time. Lots of corruption from the time that I was a student in Yerevan University. and you know, and younger generation and future generation have seen a lot of that sort of basically ignoring anything, any educational problems, not understanding. And I think that's also translated into when the budgets were decided by the government that, okay, we don't need to do much here, it works. And it's good to see that in recent years, I think with lots of involvement from international organizations, with all the wonderful work that Teach for Armenia is doing, and lots of other charities are doing, I think there's a lot of awareness now. Look what is happening. You really have to fix this. And I think we are the country is just at that kind of starting point. Okay, we have to fix it. And yes, hopefully they'll sort of, as they go, they'll increase the funding, and yeah, so we'll find this path to better education in the country. Hopefully that's sort of.
Thank you, Marianna. I have also 2 comments from the audience. So Richard has pointed that, thank you all for a very igniting presentation. Wonderful to see this level of collaboration. This is an investment in the children's future. Great job. And also Christine say, thank you for your very important work and efforts.
Thank you very much. Any other questions that you might have?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Among other shocking things that were said tonight, there's the problem of textbooks. And since everybody here is so involved with books, I'm wondering, are there any projects where you are creating new textbooks or translating textbooks? I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't be another place in the world creating Eastern Armenian textbooks, so it has to be done there. I'm just wondering, are there any projects around this in any subject?
So the question, for if you haven't heard it, is are there any projects to renew or refresh or create new textbooks in Armenia? Now, I'm not sure. I can't really answer that question. I'm looking at Marianna or Tatev or Astghik. If
yeah, there of course there are the groups of authors of the textbooks for each subject. And the good thing is that these groups of people are coming together on the idea of writing a textbook. And now I would say that many of them are teachers, current teachers, and there are also teacher leaders from Teach For Armenia who really understand the importance of having not just a new textbook in the meaning of publishing it again, but changing the content and writing it in a way that today the students will read and understand. So yes, there are groups of authors who are writing new textbooks, and there are of course also companies who are just publishing the old textbooks again. But the approach of the Ministry of Education is to I would say to have reforms in schools, and one of the reforms would be changing and updating the textbooks also of all the subjects.
Thank you very much for the answer, Astghik. Any other questions for tonight? Okay, well, I think we're gonna close this session and end it. And I would like to thank you very much all for participating tonight and listening to and being interested in what we we presented. I would like to say a huge thank you to Tatev and Astghik who joined us. I know it's very late in Armenia now. You are 3 hours ahead of us. So thank you very much both for being here with us and sharing all your experiences. And thank you very much again to the Armenian Institute and Susan for having us tonight. And I'm going to leave the floor to you, Susan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure everybody will agree that this was both shocking and inspiring evening. It's amazing, you know, having grown up around Armenians all my life and such an emphasis on education, and then to hear that we're near the bottom, that's amazing and embarrassing. and yes, I'm sure everybody on this call agrees with that and will want to help. One good thing, would love to have seen a much bigger audience for this very important talks that we've had this evening. But please, everybody, let your friends know, because this will be on, this will be made into a video and put online, and we can show it over and over again around the world. And I think that might be a really good outcome here. And it will happen. And that gives me a little tiny segue to say thank you to our new Marianna, who's up there in the right-hand corner, who really made this all possible with our old Marianna from Oxford, and Lilit, her sister. Thanks so much for all the tech help tonight. You've been terrific. It took quite a while of trial and error and persistence. So I really appreciate that. And we're very lucky because it's Marianna's very first, Marianna in the corner's very first event. Welcome to the Armenian Institute. But I would also like to just mention what Tatev said, that the classroom is not the end, but it is the beginning. And that, I think that's a great saying. And it's one that we can all take to heart. Learning doesn't stop when the classroom lets out, but it happens everywhere. And as you mentioned, all of you mentioned, really, it's taking place both in the classroom and outside the classroom. And I think that's really the best. We all learn like that, actually. So that's fantastic. All of the different innovative ways that you're using to teach. So we all speaking for the world here. Thank you so much to each of you who spoke tonight for all the very difficult work that you're doing, the very important work that you're doing. And really, it's the only way forward for Armenia. So our big thanks, and we encourage everybody to help in whatever way they can. From the Armenian Institute, we next week have a meeting on a talk on Thursday night when Eddie Arnavudian, a literary critic who's also our assistant librarian, will be giving a talk on medieval Armenia and the exciting educational opportunities that were taking place then, what all of the amazing things that happened during that period. So please do join us. That, I believe, is 7:30. Please check the event on our website. And it will be in person. My apologies to those of you who are from far away. Oxford's not that far away. Okay, so please do join us. Thanks again to all of our speakers tonight, and to Tatev and Astghik for staying up so late. That's really great. And we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you for coming.